Hi everyone, I'm Kat and welcome to my channel, Naturally Beautiful Girl. So I'm super excited to be filming today. I got a brand new camera. I don't know if you saw, but I did post a picture on my Instagram. Also, if you haven't checked out my Instagram, check it out. I'm at Naturally Beautiful Girl. I wasn't anticipating getting a new camera, but things just kind of happened in a way where I reached a point where my conclusion was I need to get a new camera. My husband had gotten me a monitor for Christmas because I'd been filming without a viewfinder. This entire time that I've had my channel, I was filming on a little Nikon Coolpix camera and it didn't have a viewfinder, and when we tried to connect it to the monitor, it turned out it was so antiquated because I'd had it for like 6 years, or maybe 7 years at this point, that it just wouldn't work with the monitor. And so we had this new monitor, and then I was like, well, I still can't see what I'm filming, so I ended up with a new camera. So if things look a little weird, I'm still playing with the settings, adjusting things. I'm really new to this. I've never had a camera like this in my entire life. So just be patient with me, but I'm really excited, and hopefully my quality of video in 2018 has greatly improved because of it. So I'm just going to jump right in, and today what I'm doing is I am talking about eyeshadow palettes. So if you love eyeshadow palettes like me, this will be the video for you. Throughout my time in Green and Eco Beauty, I have been looking for the perfect eyeshadow palette because that is what I really used in conventional beauty. I first had the original, the OG Naked palette. That was my first ever really high-end makeup product that I owned. And then eventually I got the Lorac Unzipped Gold palette, and I love that as well. So when I switched to using Green and Eco makeup, the first thing I started looking around for were eyeshadow palettes. However, a lot of brands, especially when I first started out, didn't really have eyeshadow palettes. More brands have come out with eyeshadow palettes, and so now there's actually quite a few. And so what I wanted to do in this video is kind of go through the ones that I have, tell you which ones I liked, tell you which ones I didn't like, tell you what things about which palettes I liked and didn't like, all of that, so that if you are looking for an eyeshadow palette, you have all this information and you can find which one is going to be perfect for you. That being said, I do not own every single eyeshadow palette. I am a small channel, so almost every item that I've ever talked about on this channel has been things that I have myself purchased. I will talk about what I do have, and hopefully you will find that helpful. First, I'm actually going to start off with the first eyeshadow palette I had in Green and Eco Beauty, which is this one here from 100% Pure. This is the Pretty Naked 2 palette. And this is not a purely eyeshadow palette. It does have a blush shade here and a highlight shade, but these three here are kind of billed as eyeshadow shades. And what's really cool about 100% Pure is all of these color cosmetics are colored using fruit pigments. Here, if you want to be like super clean, have one of the cleanest formulas in makeup, 100% Pure is definitely the way to go. And that's actually why I went with these first, because I was having a rash on my eye. It turns out I'm allergic to certain ingredients in conventional eyeshadows, and I wasn't sure what they were or what I could tolerate. So this was the first one that I reached for because I thought, well, if I could wear any eyeshadow, I think one that is colored using fruit pigments would be the way to go. And I have really loved this. And this is a great palette to travel with because it does also contain a blush and highlight shade. This highlight shade, by the way, is one of the most beautiful highlight shades I have ever encountered. Here, let me swatch it for you. So you can definitely see that. I'll swatch it here on my hand. It is just a beautiful highlight shade. I really love it. But the thing with this palette is these three eyeshadows here are shimmery. So the way I think you get the most out of this palette is if you think about this blush and think about it as a transition shade. So you have to think out of the box a little bit. But if you are willing to use this blush as a transition shade, you can get really beautiful, really complete eye looks with this palette. So I definitely do like it, and like I said, it is one of the cleanest formulas you can find on the market. Because I love the Pretty Naked 2 palette so much, I also went ahead and purchased the Pretty Naked palette. So this is similar. This one obviously came first before the Pretty Naked 2, but I actually bought it after I owned the Pretty Naked 2 palette. I like this one, but if I had to recommend between the two, I would actually recommend the Pretty Naked 2 palette instead of the Pretty Naked palette, just because I find that these tones are all very similar. But if you aren't really into bold makeup, you wouldn't use that dark purple in the Pretty Naked 2 palette. but you want something kind of more natural. Define your eyes, but not have it be too crazy or too exciting, then you might like this palette. If you do have a deeper skin tone, I don't know if this palette would work that well for you, because if you're noticing the shades are pretty fair in it, like I do like it, and I traveled with this to Spain and I really loved having it there. It is a really pretty, very natural eyeshadow palette. Once again, it does have a highlighter and a blush. Like the Pretty Naked 2 palette, I like to use this blush as a transition shade. This one does actually have 2 matte shadows here and here, so you do have more matte shadows. So I think it's just kind of a preference thing, but if you have a deeper skin tone, I would not go with this. I would go with the Pretty Naked 2 instead, because I think the colors would work better for a deeper skin tone. And this one, like I said, if you like a more natural eye look, or natural makeup in general, this one would be better for you. The next one I'm going to talk about is one from Lolo, and this is the Lolo Filthy Rich palette. And one of the nice things about Lolo is it's very easy to get abroad, especially if you live in Europe, because it is a British brand. Actually, I went to a green and eco beauty store in Spain when I was traveling there over the summer, and I actually saw Lolo for sale in the store, so that was kind of cool. But this palette, I really wanted it to be a replacement for my Naked palette, my original Naked palette from Urban Decay, but I just didn't love it that much. And I know that Reagan from Indie Boost, she really likes this palette, but I find the pigmentation of it to be kind of hit or miss. Some of the shades are a lot more pigmented than the other shades. Here, I'll show you here. So I'm going to swatch the yellow gold shade, and I'm going to swatch the copper shade here. So I don't know if you can see this, but the copper shade is just so much more metallic. You can see the way the light's catching it compared to this gold shade here. And I'll swatch it on my hand, side by side. You can see the difference with the way the light is catching for the more copper shade compared to the more gold shade. And they're supposed to be the same formula, like they're sitting next to each other. So I don't know. And I find it that way in general with this palette. Like the pigmentation is okay, but it's just not my favorite. And also, it doesn't have a really great transition shade. There's this matte cream shade here, and then there's this deeper matte shade here, but there isn't really a nice in-between matte crease color. And I've tried mixing these two together to kind of try and create my own crease color, but I find that it just gets really muddy, and I'm not convinced that it actually does that great of a job as a crease color. So it's okay. It's just not my favorite. I have found other eyeshadow palettes I like better, and I just don't reach for this one that much anymore because I have found other ones that I prefer. Next up, I am going to talk about this one here, and this is the Pacifica Pink Nudes palette. And this one was launched in 2017 along with 2 other eyeshadow palettes by Pacifica. One of them I think is all metallic shades, and I think the other one has a mix of metallics and mattes. This one is matte. Some of the shades do seem to have a little bit of shimmer, but more or less they're all matte shades. And I think this one is really nice, once again, if you are into more neutral palettes, and because it is from Pacifica, it is at a more affordable price point, and you can buy it at Ulta or Target, which is cool too. It's more accessible. But the one thing I have to say about this palette is the more I have owned it, the more I find my looks start looking more and more similar. I think it's harder to get distinct looks out of this palette because there are all these brown shades here, and then all these pinky shades here. And I find that when I try and do like a look that's just kind of all with these brown shades, it ends up looking a little bit muddy. You can't really distinguish between the different colors. They kind of just all mix together and get a little muddy. I do like it, and I do reach for it, and I do use it. And if you are into matte shades, if you are into more natural looking eye makeup, this is a good palette. Is it the most mind-blowing eyeshadow palette I've ever encountered? No, but it is a good standard basic eyeshadow palette. And especially if you do have some single metallic eyeshadows or shimmer eyeshadows, or you have a palette of all shimmers or all metallic eyeshadows, this is a good complementary palette to go along with those. This is like a pseudo eyeshadow palette. I don't know. I'll let you guys figure out how you want to classify this. But this is the Root Wanderlust eyeshadow palette, and Root is actually now selling these 3 shades individually. So if you do want to pick up one of these shades individually, you can do that. But when you buy it as a palette, you get it in this nice little Z palette, and it actually says, whoops, Root Wanderlust on the back of it. And I really like this eyeshadow palette. I think this is really great because it's a trio more than an eyeshadow palette because it has 3 shades. I really like it, and I just think they're really good, usable, everyday shades. You get a nice highlight shade. You could use this as a crease shade, you can use it all over the lid, and then you've got this deeper shade here. And they all three have some amount of shimmer in it, but this middle shade here is less shimmery than the highlight or this deeper shade here. But I just find it's very versatile, it's very easy to travel with. Even though there are only 3 shades, I can get a variety of different looks out of it. It's from Root, and Root always has really high quality eyeshadows, and I like that it comes in this really mini Z palette. It's perfect if you are going on like a short trip, you're going away for a weekend, a long weekend or something. It's kind of nice because it is a really compact palette to travel with. So next up, I'm going to be talking about the eyeshadow palettes from Found. So Found is a new brand that was launched at Walmart, and they're not the cleanest in terms of ingredients, but they are cleaner than conventional makeup. And I really like that they are at a lower price point and are very accessible. Some Walmarts carry them in stores, not all, but you are able to purchase from walmart.com, which is also really nice. And this palette here is in Nude 10. And this is the first one I got from Found. And I have fallen absolutely and utterly in love with this eyeshadow palette. In fact, it made it into my best of 2017 makeup video. So if that doesn't tell you how much I love that palette, then I don't know what would. And I have traveled with this. Like, I took this with me when my husband and I traveled to his family for Thanksgiving, and we were there for I think 4 or 5 days. So I really got to test out this eyeshadow palette. And I also found as a beauty YouTuber that some of the best ways to test out products are to travel with them, because you're kind of stuck with it. And so you can tell using it day after day, you're like, do I love it using it day after day, or do I wish I had something else instead? And when I took this with me, I was completely and utterly satisfied with it. I really love the pigmentation of these shadows. I'm wearing only this eye palette on my eyes today, so I got this eye look only using this palette. The metallics are really nice in it, but also the mattes are super pigmented and they blend really well too. So I'm gonna swatch a couple here for you. So here's this shade on my finger. Like, look at how metallic that is. Like, that is crazy. And then I'm going to actually take the matte black as well, which, look at that. Like, that is really matte and really pigmented. Here, I'll swatch them. So here they are swatched on my wrist. Here is the black shade and here is the brown shade. The black is a little bit patchy. It might just be because I'm not that great at swatching, but on the eyes they work super well. Like, I love that matte black, like pushed right up against my lash line or smudged along my lower lash line. Like, this palette just has everything for me and I just love it. My only complaint, which is like a very minor complaint, is that this shade over here and this shade here look very similar on me. I can't really differentiate them that well, but other than that, I love every single shade in this eyeshadow palette. So definitely one of my best eyeshadow palettes I've found. And as a result, I went out and purchased the other Found palette, and this one is in the shade Blush, and so it's got more of a kind of pink toned vibe to it. And I wanted to love this one as much as I love the Nude one, but I don't. Like, it's still a really good eyeshadow palette. If I had to recommend one out of the two, it would 100% be the Nude one over the Blush one. And my issue with the Blush one was I took this to Florida with me for a week. And I did kind of the same thing I did with the Nude one and traveled with just this palette. But I found that after a week, a lot of my eyeshadow looks started to look the same. Like, there's this shade here, and this shade here, and this shade here. They all started to look kind of the same on me, and my look started to look very similar. Whereas with the Nude one, just comparing the shades side by side, you can see that the Nude one just has more variety in the shades. So that's really my main thing with the Nude one versus the Blush one. The Blush one, the looks end up looking more similar because the shades are more similar to each other. But I think it is really nice. Once again, I think it is really pigmented. I think the mattes are pigmented, the shimmers are pigmented, it blends really well. This matte black is like the same matte black that's in the Nude one. They are really both nice, complete palettes with a lot of different shade options available for a good price. And another eyeshadow palette that made it into my best of makeup for 2017 is the Ebates palette, and I have the one here in Pretty. I'm not going to belabor this one too much because I have talked about it extensively. I did an entire review on this, and then also with Jamie from 5 Product Face. She and I each have different ones of these Ebates palettes. We each did 3 different eye looks using our palette to show kind of the versatility and how you can get a lot of different looks out of a single palette. I love this. I love the shades in it. It was the perfect choice for me. I actually was at Credo Beauty on Saturday and I looked at all the palettes in person, which I actually purchased this online without seeing it in person. And so I think I got really lucky. And actually, at seeing all 4 palettes together in person, I 100% felt like I went with the right palette. Like, I really loved my palette and I really loved the colors in it. I also like the one called Lovely. That would probably be my second choice if I were to get another one, which I really do want to do, but I really do love this one. I think it's great. I'll link my other videos where I talk about it more extensively down below. It is a higher price point, but it's not that expensive. And my main point with this is I would get this one 1,000 times over the Lily Lolo. The Lily Lolo does have more shades in it, but I think the quality of these shadows are so much better. They perform better, they look better. So when I purchased the Lily Lolo, these were not out yet, but if they had been, and now that they both are, I would say go for these instead of the Lily Lolo. It's just so much better. The last one I'm going to talk about is from Mother Bears Handmade. Mother Bears Handmade is a lovely, lovely Etsy shop. I purchased a number of single eyeshadows from the shop and I love all of them. And she recently came out with quads, and so you don't have to buy it with the case, but I bought it with the case and I highly recommend buying it with the case. Like, this was totally worth it. It's a really nice case. It has her logo on it and also has, I'm gonna try not to blind you, but it has a really nice mirror on it as well and the 4 shades in it. The quad I got is called Echo Park. I love it. It has definitely been a really great purchase. It makes me want to buy even more of these quads. Like, I just love it. And what I think is really cool too is this shade over here is actually holographic. So I'm gonna try and, it's got like a duochrome shift to it. So I'm gonna swatch it for you. So here I have a swatch down here under that one shade. I'm gonna try and like move my wrist and hopefully you guys can see it. So it's swatched right here. I don't know if the shift is coming across, but it definitely comes across on my eyes. If you check out some of my Instagram photos where I'm wearing this eyeshadow palette, you can definitely see that the shade does have duochrome to it, which for a cleaner eyeshadow formula is incredible. Like, I've never really seen another duochrome eyeshadow, and I believe she's going to be launching some single pans in her shop. But this whole palette to me is just perfect. This shade here and this yellow shade here are both matte shades and they're so pigmented. Here, I'll swatch it for you here. So this is me just touching the yellow shade and I will swatch it here on my hand. Like, the pigmentation of these shadows is just great and they blend so easily. They wear beautifully. I know that these colors are kind of funky, but I kind of like that about it. She has a whole bunch of different quads, but this is the only one I have. But I love this one so much that I imagine all the other ones are just as great as well. But this is the only one that came with the duochrome shade, which I kind of have to give a shout out for because that was really great and really unique. I've never seen anything like it before. At least knowing myself and now having tried all of them, I will tell you which ones I would repurchase if I had to go through and purchase again, and the ones that I would probably not purchase again. So I would 100% purchase the Found palette in Nude. Definitely fantastic. The Mother Bears Handmade quad in Echo Park. Love this one. Also love the Ebates palette in Pretty. I would also repurchase the Root Wanderlust palette. I really like this one too. 100% pure Pretty Naked 2. Definitely a really great palette, especially because it does come with a blush and a highlighter that you can interchange and use on the eyes. It's a good one too. The ones I would probably not repurchase knowing what I know now, the Found eyeshadow palette in blush. I also probably wouldn't repurchase the Pacifica Pink Nudes palette. I just have found other ones that I like better. Definitely would not repurchase the Lily Lolo Filthy Rich palette. And I also probably wouldn't go for this one either. I just thought it would be as amazing as the Pretty Naked 2 palette, but these 2 shades here, they just really don't show up that much on me, so it's kind of a little bit of a miss. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any further questions about these eyeshadow palettes, be sure to leave your questions down in the comment section down below and I will do my best to answer your questions. Also, I believe what I'm going to do as well is swatch all of these palettes and post the photos to my blog page. So I will link my blog page down below so you can go check out all the swatches there. I think it's easier to do swatches and photos, so that is where I'm going to do them. So definitely check that out if you'd like to see swatches of all the palettes. Hopefully that will be helpful to you. And once again, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, be sure to check out my Instagram. I'll have my handle down below. I'm at naturallybeautifulgirl. I post a lot of selfies on there so you can see how I use these eyeshadow palettes and all the looks I can get using them on my Instagram. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!